order. So, okay, we're now recording.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, February 25th, and this is the virtual Zoom meeting of the Technical Group for Interlibrary Loan. I'd like to have approval, or I guess, are there any corrections to the minutes that we had way back in February of 2020? Those were sent out to everyone in email. Are there any corrections? If there are no corrections, I would like to propose that we accept those minutes as they've been written. Can I have someone to approve those?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second. Those minutes are approved. Continuing on, we have today, I'm Jeannie Kennedy. I am the chairperson. We have a vacancy for the vice chairperson, and there's also a vacancy for secretary. And we have Mako, who is going to be recording for us today. We have a presentation today. We have Mark Hatch, who's going to be presenting first for Rails. I'd like all of you to think before we see Mark's presentation, if there are any of you who would like to volunteer for the position of vice chair or for the position of secretary. The position of vice chair would be the person who kind of keep track of the chat box during our meetings, during the Zoom meetings. We assume the Zoom meetings will continue on. And the person who would be secretary would be the person recording whatever it is that we discussed during that particular Zoom meeting. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer? I hear some rumble.
I'll do the secretary.
Okay, we have Mary Ellen who would like to volunteer as secretary. We will be voting on that later. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer as vice chair? And that would be the person who would be watching the chat box while we have the Zoom meetings. That's an easy position. I like doing that one.
I can do vice chair.
Okay, we have someone who's volunteering as vice chair. Was that you, Wendy?
This is the map.
No, Stephanie from Highland Park.
Stephanie from Highland Park. Terrific. So we have those two people who are volunteering. We're going to be voting on that at the end of the meeting. Has Mark joined us yet?
Yes, I do see Mark, and we also should have Demand here.
Okay.
Before, if it's okay for the Rail staff, before we jump in, because we don't have that physical sign-in sheet to pass around, if everyone can just take a moment right now or sometime during the meeting and just type in your name and your library, 3-letter codes is great, into the chat box just so we have that record.
Yeah.
Terrific. Let's take a moment for that now. You'll find the chat box maybe off to the side or at the bottom.
And so while everyone's doing that, I will just go ahead. So we have Mark Hatch and Damon Warfield from Rails joining us. And I believe Tom Nicholson from CTL should also be here today. We're so kind joining us. They're going to share some information on the Rails best practice, some procedural changes due to COVID, and tell us a little bit about the Rails Delivery Help Desk. So I will we'll pass the floor over to them now, I guess.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, good morning. Once again, my name is Mark Hatch.
Your picture on the screen.
The Director of Facilities and Delivery for the Rails organization. Hopefully everyone can hear me well enough. Great, good. We're gonna, I just want to really thank you guys for the invite. This is great, and we're willing to, any time you guys would like us to attend, definitely let us know, and we'll be more than happy to join. So today, what we're going to end up doing is we're just going to talk about a lot of our best practices that we've instituted since I would say, since we shut down in March, we've been working on things. When we started our delivery practice again in June, we had a lot of things in place, and we continue to tweak things as we go along. But today, I'm going to be pretty much a innocent bystander. As you said a minute ago, Demon Warfield is here, and Tom Nicholson from CTL. Demon manages our Burr Ridge operation along with our Bolingbrook operation, and he also oversees the outsourcing vendor, Continental Transport Solution, and we say CTL for short. And I'm glad you mentioned the delivery help desk, our ticketing system, which is so important, because that is the best way to communicate with us. We have a record now of the conversation, and we have a person that oversees that ticketing system to ensure that tickets are responded to in a timely fashion. So what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Demon, and then Demon can go over some of the things that we've instituted since we've returned to the office back in June.
All right, thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. First thing, I know you guys probably saw communication from us. I'm going to say a couple of weeks ago as far as quarantining items. Rails, we look at the RIM study, and we've actually reduced quarantining items down to 24 hours now. So if no one was aware, we tried to put notification in every bin to send it out to some locations. And with that, we also sent out our delivery contact information. So if any of you guys needed to update your delivery contact, that would be the perfect time. So you will see these notifications when we send out. Some of our best practices as far as COVID, what we've instituted since we've returned, we've actually have a daily wellness self-assessment for all staff coming in. And it's just a little sheet that sits at our doors at all our facilities. It asks the employee, have you had a temperature? Have you been in contact with anyone with COVID-19? Are you not feeling well? So it gives them just a little self-check they can go to on a daily basis just to make sure they're okay, before they come into the warehouse and infect everyone else. Also, we have thermometers at every location. So when they come in, they can take a temperature check when they come in every day. They all have to use one primary door to come in to make sure they use that thermometer. In addition to that, when the bins come out to you guys, we've also purchased and started using hydrostatic sprayers. So we have a little cleaning solution inside there. And as the bins are staged daily, we take and the employees spray down every bin every day. So this way, when you guys get the bins, they've been sort of decontaminated a little bit. So they've all been cleaned when they come in. And this is something that ourselves and CTL uses. CTL cleans the inside of their vehicles as well as their sort stations on a daily basis. And while I'm running my mouth, if anyone have a question, feel free to pop it into the chat box there or just pop in. In addition, we have signage encouraging face coverings, social distancing, the good hygiene throughout each location. While the workers are in the warehouse, for example, in the Bolingbrook warehouse, they have to wear masks 24 hours a day. We also incorporate, of course, 6-foot social distancing. So we make sure they're not near each other throughout their work day. I'm sort of rough on those guys as far as that. Even when they're taking lunch, if one has to break in the lunchroom and one has to take his break in the car, as long as they're 6 feet away from each other, I make sure they stay away from each other. So that's something we practice as well. There are hand sanitizer bottles strategically placed throughout the hub. There are dedicated areas for containers where they can discard PPE. Also, in addition to that, I'll stagger their shifts. So before COVID, the majority of my staff would start at, say, 6:30, 7 a.m. Now I've sort of staggered start times. So this way, they're not all starting at the same time, congregating around, of course they miss their friends and want to talk with their friends. So in this case now, I start them at like 6, 6:30, 7, 7:15. So their start times are staggered to avoid that interaction and them, breaking that social distancing gathering. And lastly, as far as, with COVID, they're saying how it's airborne, especially when we have some of your nicer days. The last few weeks, it was like -0, so I don't make them do it then. But on some of your nicer days, I will have them to crack the garage doors about once an hour, just to get some fresh air in there, some fresh air circulating around. This way, we get to move air around a little bit and they're not trapped in that warehouse with each other, But again, there's only a few of them in that warehouse, and I have a very, very large warehouse. So those are some of the practices we've put in place. Like Miko mentioned earlier, we do have Tom on the line. Tom, do you want to chime in and provide some of CTL's best practices as well with that?
Before Tom starts, and I apologize, I just wanted to interject one additional item. This primarily doesn't affect this group, primarily because of the timing in which your delivery takes place. But we also have instituted and requested that libraries set up contactless delivery areas, for the material to be dropped off. Rails would drop off material in that spot, and then we would retrieve the material from that spot. This primarily doesn't affect your operations because you guys are all serviced at night. But that's just something else that we realized would be of benefit, and it would actually assist with safeguarding our staff and then also yours. But since yours is actually serviced at night, it doesn't really apply, but I wanted you guys just to be aware that was something else that we've instituted as well. So my apologies. Tom, you can proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark and Demond. Just to reiterate what Demond brought up, we are following the same procedures. Our company sends out notifications, and they're posted around the company about our COVID protocols. And we do clean our areas constantly during the day. All of our sorters, and we have 7 to 9 sorters, including a supervisor that sorts your material. They use gloves, and they are required to wear a mask in our terminal warehouse. And as Mark just mentioned, we have we run the 2 routes at night for the northern suburbs. And again, those drivers do not see anybody. There is no contact with any people. And so what happens on that situation is they come in at night, get loaded up, and go out. So their exposure to you and to themselves is obviously negligible, if anything. So, but we are aware, and we've been aware since last March that we've been following all the CDC protocols. Social distancing, we have hand sanitizers staged throughout the warehouse, and we do have temperature monitors as well. So any driver or any employee that mentions that they are not feeling well, they are sent home immediately. And we monitor that closely, and we do what we can for the good of the company, for the good of the employee as well. So other than that, as I mentioned, there are 3 drivers that actually service the old Wheeling locations. There's 49 locations total, and only one of them, Evanston, is serviced during the day, so everything else is at night. And we've been very successful at keeping our employees and our drivers healthy. We've had a couple of people exposed, and that was last summer, but they did the required 2 weeks away, and they got retested. So we've been very successful. We have not had a mass situation with a bunch of employees having to leave for the 2-week period. So we're happy with that, and we think the protocols we put into place have worked significantly well. And we'll continue to do that until we're done with this. And hopefully that's going to be sooner rather than later, but we can't let our guard down. And if anybody has any other ideas, we're willing to hear it. And we do work closely with Demond and Mark about what needs to be done and what the expectations are.
So are there any questions that we could possibly answer at this time? What one of the things that I just want to reiterate one more time is the use of our delivery help desk. It's the best way to communicate any issues, concerns, great jobs, the whole 9 yards, that's the best way. We have multiple people that monitor that help desk to make sure that things are responded to in a timely fashion. So, and that's just it's an email address, and it's just Rails Delivery at railslibrary.info. Like I said, that is the best way to reach out to us. And we will definitely, address your issue as soon as possible.
Are there no questions for our two people?
We'll say the times I've had to reach out to the delivery help desk, I've gotten a response very, very fast. So it's a great way to communicate with Rails Delivery.
Agreed. I've had excellent service and very fast responses, and I'm very happy with the service through the help desk.
Thank you. That's really good to hear.
And I want to thank the Rails Delivery. It's been timely under very stressful situations. So thank your drivers.
We will.
We appreciate that. February's been a very
great job. They really,
all of us. So
yeah.
This has been a challenging time for everybody. So,
you've met the challenge.
Thank you. We're glad to hear that. So that's we have to give the kudos to CTL as they service your account. So we're very happy with them as well.
We're back again. I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning, especially so early in the morning on a Thursday. And again, here from Lake Forest Library, excellent service. We can't thank you enough for everything, especially for all the precautions you've been taking to keep all of us and all of the patrons that we have coming in safe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity, to meet. And like I said, we're more than willing to, if you guys have a different topic that you guys would like to discuss, we could definitely put a presentation together and definitely attend future meetings if you wish.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Everyone have a good day now. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Everyone, thank
Thanks,
you very
guys.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's move on to the next new business. This would be Deborah. She brought up the idea of a reminder on item level holds versus title level holds. Deborah, would you like to lead that discussion?
I would love to. Mako, would you be able to make me co-host or allow me to share my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Let me fix that.
Got just a little, I thought it'd be easier if you guys could read what I was saying instead of hearing me rabble on. So give me just a moment. Okay, Mako, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, I see your thumbs up. Thank you. All right, so a few questions about item.
Sorry, Deb. Real quick, it looks like it's on a presenter view, so we get like multiple slides appearing.
Let me switch that out. Hold on. That's no fun. I'd hate for you guys to have to look at all my notes here. Okay. You'd think that by now we'd have all of our technology issues all straightened away with presenting. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. Better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. All right, so we had a few questions about item level holds come up in some recent tickets. So I thought that it would be helpful to review those questions and some different procedures for placing item level holds or getting specific items back into the hands of circulation and ILL staff. So let's talk a little bit about, come on, presentation, here we go. We know that it's best practice to place title level holds over item level holds for patrons. So that's always a recommendation on behalf of CCS, because when staff place item level holds for patrons, if something happens to that specific item, there's a possibility that the patron may never get the item to fill their hold, or there may be a significant delay in the patron receiving the item. So we do always recommend that staff would place title level holds over item level holds for patrons. However, we do recognize that in some instances, staff might need a specific item barcode back into their hands. So we would recommend, or I'd like to just talk today about an alternate option to placing an item level hold, which is placing a free text block. Now, we would recommend this alternate option, especially when items that you might need back into your hands are lost items or withdrawn items, or items that might be non-holdable, such as hot copies. So I'm going to walk you through why this alternate option is a better solution for those types of items. When an item has a circulation status of lost or withdrawn, or an item isn't holdable, such as a hot copy, those items are considered permanently ineligible to fill holds. So if you are to place an item level hold on one of those kinds of items, your hold will be immediately marked as unfillable. Now, when a hold moves to a status of unfillable, it's like stuck in that status. So when that item that the hold was placed on is finally checked in, it will not track the hold. So the hold is kind of just sits there in this status. So when staff are placing an item level hold on an item that is blocked or prohibited from filling that hold, you'll see a variety of different kinds of messages. Up on your screen, you'll see a block message that would come up for an item level hold placed on, for example, a lost item. This message indicates that the item is prohibited and it won't be available to fill the request. So again, if staff override and click continue, the hold status would move to unfillable. And here's a similar message that would pop up if staff try to place an item level hold on, for example, a hot copy that's not holdable. If staff override and click continue, that hold will move to unfillable, and even if the item is returned, it will not track the hold. So this is what an unfillable hold would look like in a patron's account. You can see there under the status column, we do see that status of unfillable. So an alternate solution that I walked through recently with one of you staff members is to instead put a free text block in the item record. So when you place a free text block in an item record, when that item is checked in, this message will pop up at the time of check-in, and you can put in the message text something that indicates, give this item back to a certain staff member. So here in this example, I have a free text block that says, when the item's checked in, please give to Deborah. When the item is actually checked in, the block message would pop up saying, hey, when the item's checked in, please give this to Deborah. And hopefully staff will be reading the message and follow the direction here. I apologize, my puppy is barking in the background. I hope that's not too distracting. So does anyone have any questions on that? One of the questions that came up was, do unfillable hold requests ever refresh themselves? So, once an item, a hold is marked as unfillable, if the item becomes available instead of lost, does the hold then move to a status of requested? And the answer is, I think at this time, and maybe you can correct me, it doesn't automatically refresh itself. So even if a lost item is returned, goes back to available, the hold still stays as unfillable until staff either make a change to the hold and save it, or again, the hold's canceled and replaced. So once that hold is placed and moves to unfillable, it's kind of stuck there. and it won't pop back up on the pick list if the item the hold was placed on becomes an eligible status again.
Deborah, this is Jenny from Grays Lake. Just wondering then, if you have the item in hand, can you use the fill now and it will fill the hold? Okay.
You absolutely could. Yep, you could use that fill now. It would fill the unfillable hold. The real question is, and the scenario in which this came up was that a staff member placed an item level hold on a lost item because the patron had called, said, I'm returning this item to you. So the staff member wanted to make sure they caught the item, you know, when it was checked back in and returned. However, when the item was checked in, because the hold was unfillable immediately, the staff member was never notified. And their hold was never trapped. So the item went back on the shelf instead of being again delivered to the staff member. So in that instance, the free text block, if a free text block had been put in the item record at the time of check-in, staff would have seen it and it would have been a visual cue that something needed to be done with that item.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Deborah?
Repeat that one more time.
Sure. Did you want me to run through the whole example, Louise?
No, it's Regina.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeannie.
Yeah, no, just the part where when it gets checked in and it doesn't go to the patron, it goes to the shelf.
Right. So when an item level hold is placed on a lost item, a withdrawn item, it's probably unlikely you're going to place an item level hold on a withdrawn item. So the more likely scenario is an item level hold on a lost item. When that lost item is checked back in, it will not trap a hold. That's an item level. Because that item level hold would have already moved to that unfillable status. That unfillable status of the hold would not refresh immediately when the item was checked in and moved from lost to available. It gets stuck in that status. So the hold wouldn't trap.
Deborah, Deborah, there's a report that I do on the web reports that item holds placed on your items. And that has been very helpful for cleaning up and checking. Are the unfillables on that too? Because I use that report. It shows item holds that are placed at your library by your staff. And then there's another tab for item holds on your items by other libraries.
I believe that report, I haven't looked at it in a while. I believe it would include all item level holds, not just item level holds that have moved to unfillable. So
yeah, they do. Right.
Item level holds would never move to unfillable because the item is technically available to fill that hold. Staff can look in the request manager in LEAP to view unfillable item level holds or unfillable holds in general. And let me just pull up my LEAP right now and just so I can show that to you.
But I just wanted to mention that that report about item holds is very helpful. And also lately, I've received several item hold requests for book clubs. One of the library's staff members placed an item hold for our item for their book club. It should have been just a standard system hold.
That's good to know. Let me just show you quickly where you can view your unfillable holds. I'm going to share my screen.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you here.
Right now, I am in Training Leap, so this is in production. If you go up to the Utilities menu, you can open up the Request Manager. In the Request Manager, you are able to view all hold requests that are either placed by your patrons or that you're the pickup point for. So here you would, it likely would default to your branch from the dropdown, so the branch you're logged into. And then if you look at this dropdown menu, which lists hold status, you can review holds with the status unfillable, and then you could look at pickup locations. So holds that are unfillable that are marked for pickup at your library. And then you would be able to review all of the holds that are currently unfillable. You can easily identify which of those are item level holds because there will be a little book icon in the first column here. And then those are holds that would need to, depending on the situation, may need to be replaced as a title level hold, because currently they cannot be filled by the item that they were placed on, or on the title, the bid that they were placed on.
And I just want to read, we have a really important question in the chat. Does the free text block disappear on its own, or does it need to be manually removed? Thanks, Elena, for answering that one. Yeah, so if you add a free text block in after the hold has, or after you receive the item, definitely you remember to manually remove that free text block.
I have a question too. Since we use a sorter, I think a number of us do, what would happen is if there's a hold still on that item, it still would not go back to the person asking for it with the free text block, right? Because it would trigger a hold, say that the item came in and a patron had a hold on it, and it would go through the sorter would shoot it out into the holds bin, and then someone would have to go, they would trigger the hold, and more than likely they would ignore that note and send it on.
That's a good question. It depends, I suppose, on the situation. If it is an item level hold and there is a free text block, I'm not quite sure if the sorter would consider that free text block on the item to be an exception and pop it into your exception bin. I'm not as familiar with the sorter configuration to know how that would work. Would it continue to check in the item even if the item had a free text block, or would it bump it to the exception bin for a staff to manually look at? Does anyone happen to know if you have a sorter?
I think what happens with our sorter is that it would, if there's a hold on the item, there is the free text block, but it would still go, it would trigger the hold when the person would process it for that person. Like the block note would pop up, but more than likely, if it's not dated, like return immediately, you know, after this, you might think, oh, someone just put that note in prior to triggering the hold and, you know, prior to placing the hold. And so you're thinking, oh, when it comes back next time, then I give it to the person.
Yeah, that's good to note. I think in the specific example where the item would be lost or not holdable, and then the hold will go to unfillable, the item wouldn't trap any additional holds, even if the sorter checked it in. So at that point, it wouldn't be considered eligible to fill any item level hold. I'm not quite sure if it would still trap a title level hold. So that's something we might need to test on. But that's something important to note, that with sorters, you know, how does your sorter handle those item free text blocks? That's something we might want to look at and test. Mika, do you have anything to add on that? I'm not sure if you have any insight into sorters or item free text blocks.
I don't. I think one of these libraries needs to hire me so I can play around with sorters.
We'll just loan you. They can't hire you. Yes. Any more questions on that? So again, as of course, I know all of you know, we definitely prefer those title level holds over item level holds, but in situations in which you need to place an item level hold, do be aware that items with, again, those like prohibited statuses would move your hold to unfillable if it's item level. So those lost items, those not holdable items, if you override to place an item level hold, your hold will go to unfillable, which means when that item comes back, it's actually not going to trap the hold. So in those specific circumstances, it is probably more helpful to have that free text block so that staff have some sort of visual cue the item shouldn't go back on the shelf. So I'm happy to send out my slides or some more detailed directions to the group if you guys think that would be helpful. And then if you have questions, just let us know.
Deborah, thank you. I think some notes on the slides and having it reinforced in the notes for today's meeting would be very helpful for everyone. Any other questions on this? No? Okay, let's move on to the next item on our agenda. And this is a discussion and who at your library handles questions regarding intra-CCS loans versus out of the system CCS loans. So we have a lot of people here today. I don't know how we're going to, should we call on them or just let people pop in?
I'm happy letting people pop in just to kind of give some like background and context about this. We just received a question about like using the CCS directory. You know, they list the separate contacts for like circulation, for public services, for interlibrary loan. And just trying to get a sense of, you know, where to direct people if they have questions on intra CCS loan versus out of system interlibrary loan. So just interested in hearing who at your library handles those like intra CCS questions versus the ILL questions.
Stephanie, can we start with you?
Sure, I handle both the intra and the OCLC related questions.
Jackie?
The same here, I do both.
Moving on, yes?
Tony, I do handle both.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, Matt handles both.
Karen?
Me and Joyce at Fremont do it. Joyce Cumberland, or I'm the circulation manager.
Angie?
At Des Plaines, Elliot and I handle the non-CCS and CCS, intra-CCS loan questions are handled by Michelle Meyer-Adley, by Lori Papadorakis, and by Dana Jenkins. So those three people would be the ones to send those questions to, but Elliot and I are non-CCS.
Amy?
Yes, sir.
Both Louise and I handle both intra and non-CCS.
Right. Elliot?
Oh, Angie answered for us.
That's what I thought, yeah. We've got Carrie here.
Yeah, they answered in the chat. So Susan and Cheryl
Yes,
do
Karen.
the out-of-system ILL, and Nina does the intra-CCS ILL.
Did I miss anyone?
At Round Lake, it's Maggie, Jan, and I who handle both.
Okay, and Mary Ellen?
But Niles, Athena, and the circulation department handle the intra-CCS, and I take care of the OCLC out-of-system question.
At Lake Forest, I take care of the OCLC, and then the CCS, it's myself, but we kind of share that between Tori and Chusey back and forth. We wear many hats right now with the changes in the COVID.
Jeannie? Maybe it would be easier to find out the libraries who have different people handling, because it seems that most of the people on that CCS ILL contact list handles both. So it might be easier to list the ones that don't handle both.
Oh, that's a good suggestion. Yes, thank you.
We at Algonquin have two. So I actually put it in the chat. Wendy handles our OCLC and adult services, and then I handle the CCS ones in CIRC.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do we have anyone else to contribute, or should we move on? The next thing is discussing overdue OCLC items, extending COVID kindness, which I'm sure we're all doing, and being more lenient about overdue items. I know at Lake Forest Library, when the things go into quarantine, we get a lot of phone calls. I'm sure all of you do also, about my item hasn't been checked in yet. Where is it? You know I returned it. And I'm sure it's the same story at many of the other institutions. How are other people handling this at this time? Yes, Jackie?
Hi, I think I brought up that topic. I was more referring to the out of system, the OCLC items that are overdue. I'm not sure how libraries handle those in normal times. At what point you sent bills to libraries. I know I've been
really lenient, haven't done anything, but I have some, now it's like, whoa, we've got some stuff that was due back in July. I know when I go and check out some things to certain libraries out of our system, they have some big bills in there. And I just wondered if people were now starting to kind of pursue that with those libraries.
Angie?
We've run into a lot of problems with the mail. So OCLC items that we're sending out of state are getting delayed in the mail or lost in the mail. And it's taken weeks for it to reach the destination and sometimes never reaches. So we're being super, super generous. We're renewing things multiple times, even beyond our standard limits for, especially for out-of-state libraries, universities, colleges that maybe have been closed for a long time. If a library has a lot of items that have gone to assume lost, and it's been, and now we're getting to some things that are going to be almost a year. At that point, we issue a recall just to kind of flag it on their site that, hey, this item hasn't come back. However, we're not lending. We're still lending, even though libraries have these outstanding items, because I think everybody's just kind of in a mess as far as trying to get these items, you know, returned that are way out there. Not everything's within their control, especially things that go through the mail. So we haven't had any library that we've said, we're not lending anything to you. I think we may have had one library that had multiple items that have gone to assume lost. We may have like sent an email saying, hey, all of this stuff, you know, what's going on with it, or, you know, recalled it. But we still go ahead and lend at this point, just because we're still in the middle of the pandemic and there's libraries that are closed or have limited staff, or, you know, have just recently reopened. So operations are not as they used to be. So generosity has kind of been and leniency has been kind of our key word here.
Thank you. I've actually talked to the US Post Office, and it was an envelope that I was mailing, and it was returned. Regular sized envelope, but they said it was going to be $3.80. And it should have been a standard, you know, stamp on there. And I asked them why. And they said the contents was folded in such a way that it wouldn't go through the machine. So that would have to be pulled and handled by hand. So in anything that you mail, they said, make sure that it's completely flat, and that going from each side of the envelope, that there's no bump in the middle. If there's a bump in the middle, they're going to pull that item out to see what it is, and then it will be handled by hand or returned to you. So when you're sending out those bills, that's one thing to consider. Is there anyone else that'd like to contribute to this conversation?
I will.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh, I caught up on a number of June, July, and August overdues, and I sent those bills out in December, and now 90% of the items have come back. So I think it's just a case many times of not being staffed or just relocating the material. So none of it had to be paid for.
Wonderful.
I think too, what we've done is we recall it, then I wait a month, and then after that, then what I'll do is I'll snip the record and send it to that contact person and say, hey, you know, can you give me an update what the status is at lost, or does your student still have it? And 9 times out of 10, it's a student has taken it home and they're, you know, still at home. They're doing, you know, remote learning. So just getting the update that the item is not lost. And then if it is lost, then obviously you bill them. But that's, I mean, basically what we've been doing. And we've also been very generous about renewing it if we can. So I mean, it seems to be working.
Good things to hear.
Thanks. It sounds like everybody's doing about the same thing. Angie, the same thing as we are doing. I just wanted to just touch base with everybody. Sounds good.
Wonderful. Let's move on to the next discussion item then. ILL items. This was brought up. ILL items and reporting. How do you report your ILL statistics? Examples, numbers borrowed in a month. What do you do with those statistics and how do you report them?
Are you asking about true like OCLC interlibrary loans? Or are you talking about the whole number?
You know what? I think when this item was brought up, it was probably, Mako, if I'm not mistaken, these were for the OCLC items.
Yeah. You know, CCS is just kind of looking at how libraries gather data at this time. So, you know, we were really interested with talking to the ILL group about this because you have such a unique set of materials that you gather statistics for. So, you know, we were interested in, you know, I guess overall, like where you use to gather your data. Do you go to Simply Reports, web reports? Do you stick mainly to OCLC for, you know, those out of system statistics? And then just, I guess, giving some more potential discussion topics, you know, wondering like how frequently do you run your reports, and if there's any barriers to getting the data that you need.
I go through WorldShare and I use the reports that way. You can get your borrowing statistics and your lending statistics, and it'll break it down for you by articles, by books, that type of thing. So that's what I use. I literally do it every 6 months and that's it. We don't really gather those statistics. I think that the director, she relies more on the statistics that are provided by CCS.
Same at Lake Forest. Yes, Angie?
We do our reports monthly. We use web reports, and the way our reports are done, it has both intra CCS and non-CCS loans, but then we do a breakdown of how much we are, how many items we're lending through non-CCS, how many items we are borrowing non-CCS, and then there's a big intra-CCS number, and then we kind of total the whole thing. But we do it on a monthly basis for the board reports.
Were there any months that you stopped lending?
Only when we were shut down for the pandemic. So that would have been March through June. And then we started again in July.
Yes.
Jeannie, Wilmette still marks them on a monthly basis and breaks them down to returnables, in-state, out-of-state, and articles in-state and out-of-state. And that's all we keep track of, but we keep track of those manually. I've compared them to the OCLC statistics, and there's a discrepancy. And sometimes I don't get a breakdown of articles. So that's all. But it isn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
At Algonquin, we also keep ours manually. We just every day mark down what we're lending and what we are borrowing for our patrons. I also have looked at the OCLC ones, and I notice also a discrepancy. So
thank you for confirming. Yeah.
Interesting.
At Lake Villa, we too old school manual on those monthly. Yeah, there is some discrepancies, and it's weird. I can't figure why would it be. It's odd. I don't know, but but I'm willing to do something different. If I'm like you're talking about the Simply Reports. So, does anybody use that? No. Guess not.
I see Glenview's chat too. So thank you, Elena, for adding that in. It sounds like they're tracking borrowing and lending by entering into a monthly Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, on to the next item then. This is open for discussion. Share versus OCLC borrowing. How often does your library use the share program to request materials from outside the system versus going to WorldShare OCLC? I know at our library, it's exclusively OCLC when we're outside of the system, and our staff is really competent in making those requests.
We too at Lakeville are pretty much, well, we are. I've never gone out to share personally. So just OCLC.
Mm-hmm.
We're also exclusively OCLC.
Yes.
I used to, Wilmette used to do more share. I share. They're in the process of transitioning. I keep going into their website and they're not giving me their overall catalog. I liked iShare because they would renew automatically. So people who were getting textbooks, I could, or, you know, regular from the academics, I could see right away if it was going to be renewable or not. You know, they would give me an instant response. But the website says the catalog or something is being updated. Miyako, do you know anything about that?
So I think we're actually talking about different things. There is iShare and then there's Share Illinois.
I'm talking about Share Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Yeah. So with Share Illinois, and I don't know if there's anyone who is new to ILL in the audience, but Share Illinois is that program where libraries can register with other consortia in the region and log in directly to their catalog to place a request. So like, you know, Fountaindale Public Library from Pinnacle has their own card number and password with CCS and can log into the our catalog and request something instead of going through OCLC. You know, it makes sense hearing all of these responses, even in the chat, saying everyone pretty much exclusively uses WorldShare and OCLC. Because I know, you know, I've been here, 3.5 years or so, and I think I don't know if I've ever gotten a question about Share.
I think Share Illinois is mostly for smaller libraries who don't have the funds to use the word OCLC. And so that's why the state kind of set that up to balance it out for people. And then also I know libraries, like Deerfield, for instance, that they do participate in it, but I think it's more beneficial to people who are in smaller consortiums.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've been getting requests from those small libraries almost through email.
Oh, interesting.
And outside of this, I know on our website, we've listed a lot of different resources for patrons to log into so that they can use it remotely from home. So I'm sure all of your libraries have done that on your websites that are outside of OCLC so that they do have materials, a lot of audio books and picture books for children. Anyone else? Well, Mako, we have LEAP outreach services you're going to present on.
Yeah, so one of the questions we got submitted for the agenda was just curious about how LEAP outreach can benefit home services patrons. So I don't want to do like a full overview of the functionality, but just kind of give the group with a short little summary here about what the LEAP outreach function is, and just kind of maybe give you an idea if it can be helpful for your home services patrons or if it may not apply to your library. I am going to share my screen for this segment. So let me just get over here and try to minimize as much as I can so I'm not blocking the screen. Okay. So I'm going to do this in training LEAP. I thank you, McHenry, because I kind of borrowed your profile here so I could set up a demo for outreach. So outreach services, it's a completely optional functionality that's built into LEAP. And so the big purposes of this functionality is to allow staff to track preferences of outreach patrons, possibly organize deliveries, and even be used as a reader's advisory tool. So patrons are only considered part of this outreach functionality if staff manually mark them as outreach patrons. And let me just pull up a patron record here. There we go. I was worried I left my Leap up idle for too long. Okay. So the outreach services functionality in a patron record can be found under the reader services tab. And staff do need to have be part of the outreach permission group in order to access this area. But there is just one little checkbox for outreach enabled. And when you select that and save the patron, they are now considered an outreach function patron. And this opens up a number of different things that you can do with a patron, I guess. The nice thing about outreach services is that you can pick and choose what parts of outreach you want to use. So you don't have to use every single piece of functionality here. At the minimum, what this little checkbox does is flag the patron as an outreach patron. So this prompts a pop-up notifying you that this was for, like, your activity is for an outreach patron when you A, check an item out to them, and B, when you trap a hold. And let me just show you what that looks like. So let's say I've got a barcode here I'm going to copy and paste in. So let's say you're checking in your materials that were pulled from the shelves, and when an item traps for one of those outreach enabled patrons, you'll see a fill hold request, yes, but then you'll also see a hold note that this is an outreach services patron. So then staff have a visual that they know to, to give to a certain person or to bring to a certain department. So, at the minimum, you can enable patrons as outreach patrons just to have a nice little hold note pop up. Let me cancel out so I don't print that. Another thing you can do is you can track preferences for the patron. So I'm just back in my patron record under the Reader Services tab. And there is a little drop-down menu here called Preferences. So this is where you can add details to the patron records on, say, what material types they like. So if I come into this other, I can specify that they prefer large print, or maybe I can exclude Blu-rays if they don't have a Blu-ray player. You can also specify like subjects or authors that they like. And even under general, you can set up preferences if they have a disability, or if there's certain equipment that they need. And this preferences section is customizable by the library. So this will only contain the data that you want to keep track of. So the one thing with preferences though, they don't appear in any reports, or they don't pop up at any time to staff in a dialog box. Some do impact the automated readers advisory service. So if I say fill out subject information, that's going to impact that automated readers advisory service. Other things like those equipment needs, staff will have to come into the patron record and check preferences just to reference what kind of needs or preferences, I guess, that the patron has. The other thing that could potentially be useful for your home services patrons is the ability to track delivery dates. You can establish a delivery or like a service schedule for the patron. So one thing the library can do is you can specify the delivery method that you'll use for the patron. For example, you can say, okay, this is our usual van delivery, or their caretaker picks up their materials. You can also specify a route. So, this person gets deliveries on Thursdays. And you can even drill down far enough as a specific stop. So you can, and some examples of stops, you can use a particular Thursday route. You can use, Tuesday routes. You can use like community centers, or like community living spaces as a stop, or you can even get as specific as a particular address as a stop. Additionally, you can also set a frequency of delivery. So you can specify as this patron gets monthly deliveries, biweekly deliveries. You can get as specific as like every 9 days this patron gets a delivery. Again, these features are completely optional, so you can use them. You don't have to use them. It's up to what's going to help your library. I am going to, in a moment, I'll show you where you can get information about all this delivery stuff. Let me just save this patron's preferences real quick. The last thing you can do, I also mentioned the automated selection list. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this because it can get pretty involved. But to use an automated selection list, like I said before, you will have to have at least something entered for subject, author, or genre. And what it does, so, let's say I want to add in my users' preferences for subjects. They like true crime stuff. So what this does is that when I run my automated selection list, it looks for matches in the item records and the bib records. And then it will draw those records in to a suggested list of materials to pull for the patron. There is, like I said, both a handout and a full video just on the selection list on the learning portal, if you do want to explore that a little more. But I want to show you where you can get information on delivery. So under utilities, you will see a tool for outreach services. And when I open that, it's going to give you your outreach services manager. So this is where you can say, well, I'm pulling together my Thursday route, folks. I just want to see who is coming up for delivery. So, I can use this top portion here to specify what patrons I'm looking for. And then the manager is going to limit down to whoever is fits into that category. So, I can say I'm prepping my Thursday route. Here are the patrons who are on my Thursday route. I know now I can prepare their materials for them. So, like I said, this is a super quick overview. I think there's like 4 or 5 different videos you can watch on this. So there is a lot that's involved with the outreach services module. And, for all of this, you can't really say if I can't say definitively if these features are going to be useful for you or not. So, like I said, some of you might find you have a great setup and you don't need to use this part of LEAP. Others may enjoy using one part of it. So you may say, oh gosh, this delivery route thing is going to be great to help us organize our deliveries. Or you might just like having those outreach patrons marked. So the pop-up will appear when you trap their holds. If that was a very, very quick overview of outreach. If you are interested in experimenting with outreach, CCS, there are some things we have to set up on the back end for you. But, we can set it up in training if you guys want to play around before making any decisions on if you want to use it or not. So, feel free to open a help desk ticket if you are interested in kind of exploring some of those options. I'm not sure if there's any libraries here who are currently using any features, but if anyone has suggestions for how they use it or what parts are helpful for them. I'm really interested in hearing that too.
I'm going to suggest this to our children's department. They service some daycare centers where they drop off large numbers of books on particular, themes.
Yeah, that might be helpful. And that's a great point. Like, it doesn't have to be individual patrons. It can be the schools, the centers, businesses, institutions. Zion says they're using it for a traveling library, which is really interesting. So yeah, so if if anyone does think about it, and after checking out the documentation on the learning portal, if you're interested, open that help desk ticket, and we can get some things set up for you to play around with.
Okay. Thank you. We have another presentation by Mako. Follow on searching in the Power Pack. So you're our start.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Sorry, you guys have to listen to me for so long here. So we had another question submitted about follow-on searching. I also have stuff to share here. I have a presentation, so let me get that started. So follow-on searching. Follow-on searching is an optional feature libraries can activate in the Power Pack. It allows users to search WorldCat through our catalog interface. It does not automatically list WorldCat results alongside CCS results in the catalog. So the patron has to manually tell the pack they want to see the additional results. And there's a couple ways that happens. So the first way you can see here is that if the patron performs a search in the catalog that has 0 results, they will then be asked if they want to search a follow-on database. I will demo this in the pack here after the presentation. I'm sure some of you can't see that slide properly. So if they do say, yes, I want to search the follow-on database, it will relaunch the search, pulling in WorldCat records. The second way is for the patron to manually select to search WorldCat right away. So these will probably be for your savvier patrons. For both options, once the user activates follow-on searching, it will remain on for the remainder of their search session or until they deactivate WorldCat. The nice thing about this is libraries can control access to follow-on searching if they choose. So there's a couple ways, a couple levels here. If you don't want to restrict access in any way, you can set it up so that anyone who is searching in your Power Pack profile can access follow-on searching. So in this scenario, users don't need to be logged in. As long as they're using your pack profile, they will be able to perform follow-on searching. Or, excuse me, libraries can specify that they require users to be logged in. So in this case, a patron just needs to be logged in, but any logged in user can search the follow-on databases. Or the third level is that you can specify which patron codes you want to have access. So here, the patron must be logged in and must have a certain patron code in order to be accessed the follow-on searching. So with this, I can say I just want my my NIK patron code to be able to access, but I'm going to exclude the CPL patron code and MGK patrons. Excuse me. So with this third option, you can definitely tell the pack only only the users I give access to can use follow-on searching. Let me pop in. We currently have it set up in Niall's main training pack. So it's not active right now for any patrons, just for staff who come in here and play around. So what happens, what this looks like. So if I do a search and I have no results in the CCS database, as it will tell me here in a second. There we go. Oh no. This is what I get for leaving things up on my computer idle way too long. Let's try that again. There we go. So if I do a search in our local database and there's no results, this is what it's going to tell me. It says, you know, it will pull in those results from the follow-on databases, which in library speak will be WorldCat. So when I click there, I then see that I can see the results from WorldCat. It will tell me what the source, so I can see that it is from WorldCat and not our local database. And like I said, it's going to stay active until I deactivate it. So for the savvy users, when I look at my select database option, it will see that I have the PAC or the local CCS catalog searching and OCLC WorldCat searching. You will also see that there is an option to place hold. Again, this is an entirely optional feature. And let's resume the slideshow. A completely optional feature that can be used in addition to the searching, you can allow users to place holds on these follow-on titles. Libraries can allow patrons to submit requests for WorldCat titles through the CCS Power Pack. What happens when a user places a hold on one of these WorldCat titles is that Polaris creates an ILL request record, and this request has a status of inactive. One of the shortcomings of this, while we can control who is able to place a request in the pack, we are not able to control what they place the request on. So this means if your library has local policies on what you will and will not request via out-of-system ILL, or from where, you know, these policies can't be reflected in the pack. When a patron places a hold on one of these WorldCat titles, the request will appear in the Polaris Request Manager. Staff will need to monitor the Request Manager for new requests. When you find a new request, you can then follow your normal workflow for submitting the request through WorldCat or WorldShare. I just want to emphasize that any request the users place in the Power Pack for WorldCat titles will not automatically be sent to WorldShare. So for you staff who were around in 2018, you may remember that we tested an integration between Polaris and WorldShare, and it had not been developed enough yet to where it would have helped libraries. At the time, CCS did not recommend libraries use this integration. At this time, we still do not recommend libraries use this integration. And the big reason is because WorldShare can only accept minimal information from Polaris. So title, author if it's there, ISBN if it's there. The format will always come over as book, no matter what the user places a hold on in the pack. The OCLC number is not sent. So, you know, not only is the title information minimal, but the patron information was also minimal to the point where if like the user gets a new barcode before their hold is ready, libraries may have difficulty identifying the patron. So, you know, at this time that integration has not changed or been developed at all. It's still kind of in the same place it was a couple years ago when we tested. So we don't recommend using the integration, but libraries can certainly still choose to add the follow-on searching to their Power Pack if they want. And again, we can set this up in the training Power Pack so staff have a chance to explore it before implementing anything in the production Power Pack. There is one last thing I want to show you related to this in Leap. So I'm just going to close out of my outreach stuff. One related feature that you will see in a future upgrade is follow-on searching in Leap. And what this does is allow library staff to search other catalogs from LEAP. So when you open the Find tool and you click on this record type column, where this is where you flip between like searching bib records versus searching patron records. Right now we're in training. You don't see this in production, but on one of the future versions of Polaris, what you will see is the bibliographic record remote databases option. And when I select this, it then allows me to come over. There's a new little icon at the end of my search bar. It looks like a little stack of coins. When I click that, it then allows me to search other databases, other catalogs. So the feature is intended mainly for catalogers to import new records into our database, which means, let me just show you what a record looks like. So, you know, I see here, I'm getting world OCLC results. When I click on it though, it's not going to give me really any information except for the MARC record. So at this time, this feature is really just built for catalogers. The idea of it probably looks cool, but as you know, if you guys see it and play around with it, I don't want to give you your, build up your hopes and then go into a record and see that like, oh, this doesn't help me at all. One other thing I just want to mention here, there is a save button. This again is for catalogers. So if you have cataloging permissions, what you can do is click save and it will copy this OCLC bib record into the CCS database. So again, in the future, we'll probably have hopefully some more information or better functionality with that. But just kind of want to show you what that looks like. So if you're in training and playing around with it, just kind of explaining what you will see there. So again, follow-on searching in the Power Pack, totally optional. If you want to explore, open a ticket with CCS, we can set it up in training so staff can play around.
Do we have any questions from the floor? No?
I have one. It's very confusing for our patrons when they look at their ILL. When you place a hold for them, it says inactive, so they think that we have not placed the hold. Is there any way that language could be changed?
No, unfortunately not. We have control over the intra-CCS hold statuses, but we have no way to change the out-of-system interlibrary loan statuses. The one workaround I know some libraries are using is clicking that export button in the interlibrary loan status or in the interlibrary loan request record, and that will update the status from inactive to active.
Okay.
And since we don't have any kind of integration with OCLC, between Polaris and OCLC, when you hit the export button, it doesn't do anything else. So that's kind of the nice thing about it. It updates the status without doing anything else.
Yeah, the only frustrating thing I'm having is that they think that the hold hasn't been placed, so then they delete it. They hit cancel, yeah. But then I don't get an update telling me that they've canceled it. So then the item comes in, then I contact them and say, and then they're, oh no, yeah, I would like to have that. But then you have to recreate the record. Is anyone else running into that?
Yes, I have. And generally, it's just a quick call to the patron. And they say they want it, and we just process it. We notice it when the item comes in. So we've had it, but it's only one time did a patron say, "Oh, I bought the item," and I kind of thought, "Oh, I wish you'd called me." We could have canceled. But yes, we're having the same issue.
And just kind of go through some chat. So it sounds like Glenview, Algonquin, and also use the export button. So it's really good to know that it does work for some libraries. And then Grays Lake mentions they don't put the request in the patron account until they have the item in hand, which is definitely a workflow option.
Wonderful.
And question for the libraries who do use the export button, at what point do you use the export button?
We use it as soon as the hold is placed, because often a patron will call a week later, and if a staff member doesn't see anything on the record, they go and place it again. So it's placed, it's on the export. The export button is activated immediately so that we know it's been placed.
And it sounds like same with Glenview and Fremont too.
Wonderful. Anything else? Okay, we're going to move on to the last item, and that's kind of going back to the very beginning, our nominations. Thank you, Mako, for all the information. The nominations from the floor, do we have somebody who will nominate for vice president?
It could be that we don't remember the names of the people that were.
Okay, Mako, do you want to refresh us?
Sure.
Here for vice president is?
Yeah, so let me go back to my notes here. We had Stephanie was volunteered a nomination for vice chair / chair-elect. And Jeannie, do you think, should I go through real quick, just kind of a nutshell of the responsibilities? Sure. Is that okay? Okay.
That'd be great.
Cool. So in terms of vice chair, chair-elect, for the remainder of the fiscal year, you will serve as vice chair. So like Jeannie did a great job of kind of nutshelling this at the beginning. You'll be helping monitor chat, fill in for the chair when they're absent. And then the next fiscal year, you will serve as chair of this group. Major responsibilities of the chair, you're just compiling agendas, sending them out to the groups, just kind of doing exactly what Jeannie's done, moving along through that agenda, making sure we stay on topic and on time. I will say you will not be responsible for any technical aspects of Zoom meetings. So CCS will cover anything tech-wise, so don't worry about that. In terms of the secretary, your role is to take notes during the meeting and to compose minutes. The other officers will help you review the notes before they get sent out to the group. And this is also the best time to be the secretary because everything's recorded. So you know, you've got something to go back to later to refine your minutes. So yeah, so let me go back to my notes, I'm sorry. Yep, Stephanie gave a nomination for vice chair, chair-elect, and Mary Ellen gave a nomination for secretary.
Okay. So the nominating committee has as follows: Stephanie for vice chairperson, for secretary, Mary Ellen. Does anyone else want to nominate someone for either one of these positions? There are no further nominations for vice president. Any further nominations for secretary? No further nominations for secretary. We will now vote on the slate as Stephanie for vice chairperson and as Mary Ellen for secretary. Should we vote using the chat?
Yeah, because I'm sure if everyone unmuted themselves and tried talking all at once, it would be a little chaotic.
Okay. So this is going through as a whole slate, either approving the slate or not approving the slate. We have approval from Karen, Jenny, Huntley. Paula, Elliot, Stephanie. Oh, it's going through. It's kind of fun to see it at the bottom, actually. Has everyone had a chance to vote? Yes. Mako, do you see the slate? Is it all approved? So we have it as vice chairperson, Stephanie, for this upcoming year. And for secretary, we have Mary Ellen. Congratulations to both of you. Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. It's wonderful. I know you'll enjoy your positions. If there's no further not completed business from before, I'm going to. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Angie.
Yes, Angie.
My agenda question item kind of got buried at the top of the agenda. It was right under the new business. So if I could ask the question now, it was very brief. It's about duplicate library records. When I am sending items out to libraries, I'm still finding duplicate records from when Grace Lake and Palatine merged. And I simply just wanted to ask, is it okay for us to go ahead and merge those records, or Mieko, would you like us to just send them to you to do?
You know, if they have a duplicate barcode, go ahead and try merging.
Okay.
Yep. I know, Angie, I know we've run into a case where there was something blocking it.
Yep.
Yeah. In that case, if you run into a block, send it to CCS.
Okay.
If the library records have different barcodes,
okay,
just send to CCS.
Okay. All right. So duplicate, we can do different records or blocks sent to CCS.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Angie.
it.
Okay. This is Betty from Prospect Heights Library. On behalf of Ann Thomas, who's our head of CERC, she wanted me to let the group know what she's doing, and she's hoping maybe other people would want to follow suit. Ann has been concerned that when we get items back from interlibrary loan, whether it's through CCS or whatever, we might find some water staining or something like that. And then it becomes a case of, well, did we let it go out this way? Or, you know, did this happen when the other patron had it? So she has started in the notes when she notices things, putting a little note in there. So this way it protects both us and the patron from the other library from being questioned or, you know, possibly charged for some sort of damage. So it's nothing big, but she just wanted me to bring it up to everybody's attention. And, you know, if that's something that you feel would be useful for your library also, you know, it might be something to consider.
Thank you.
What notes are we talking about? Are we talking about the item or the person?
It's for the item. Because it would be the book, you know, or let's just say it's a book when it comes back from another library and all of a sudden we open it up and maybe the first couple pages are slightly wrinkled, you know, not enough that you wouldn't want to put it back on the shelf. But this way, then she makes a notation so that the next time it goes out, even with our own patrons, if CERC again notices, oh, gee, there's these couple of pages that are wrinkled, they can look on the notes and go, oh, okay, this happened, you know, 3 months ago or whatever. So we certainly can't get on the patron who's returning it. It's just that sort of thing.
Okay, and then in which note in the item notes? Because there's like a lot of choices in there.
Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. She passed it on to me, and so I don't know the specifics, but it's Ann Thomas at Prospect Heights. If you want to drop her a line, she could probably expand on what I'm saying.
Right. I feel like we covered this topic before in previous meetings and had some sort of like consensus on which, you know, where we're putting these notes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, like I said, I was asked to bring it up, so my mission is accomplished.
You did your duty. I will try to find a reference for our previous conversation and send the link out when the minutes drafts goes out.
Thank you, Miko.
Thank you, Miko.
Any other comments? Business? No? Okay.
Do we know if Deborah's puppy is all right?
She tired herself out, so she is now napping, thankfully.
Okay.
I apologize.
All right.
She wanted to present with me today.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, a question came up in the chat. Has anyone had Switch games missing? We have a yes from Ela.
We had one notable one. The patron returned it to the Algonquin branch without the game, and then they contacted the patron, and then the patron returned the game finally, and it was in transit for over a month, and then when it finally came back to us, the game was still missing, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, Fremont mentions they put them in sealed envelopes now.
I know at Lake Forest, we're very conscientious when we open it up, you know, that first time to make sure that it's right there. Anyone else? Well, I would like to thank everyone who participated today, Mako for your presentations and Deborah, and for Mark and Desmond who gave speeches earlier. This was the first meeting that I have run, and it's been a pleasure participating. I would like to adjourn this meeting. Do I have someone who will give us a first?
I might make a motion. Oh, go.
Motion, yes. Jackie, someone for a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
I declare this meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yay.
Great job. Great job, Jeannie.
Good job, Jeannie.
When is the next meeting?
Mako, we were talking about that. We didn't actually set a date.
You know what? We will do, I'm just pulling up the schedule now. Originally, we set aside the May date to be for a continuing education date. But if we have, oh my gosh, where's my schedule? But we had a lot to talk about here. I have a feeling we'll probably have a lot to talk about in May as well. So at this time, let's say we will have our regular interlibrary loan meeting Thursday, May 27th.
Thursday, May 27th it is. Thank you.
Okay, I am going to stop the recording at this time.